The hidden meaning of born again Jesus wordplay. You have probably heard the phrase born again countless times. It is printed on bumper stickers, debated in cultural arguments, and preached from countless pulpits. We assume we know exactly what it means. But what if I told you that the very first time Jesus spoke this phrase, the brilliant man listening to him missed the point entirely because of a single Greek word? What if a hidden detail in the original language reveals that this famous phrase is not a command for you to try harder, but an invitation to finally stop striving? Let's open up the text and look at what English translations leave behind. The insider who hit a brick wall. Usually when we read the story of Nicodemus, we assume he was just a confused bystander asking a foolish question about climbing back into his mother's womb. But if we look closer at the context, we see that Nicodemus was no amateur. He was a Pharisee, a man who built his entire existence around strict obedience to the law of Moses. He sat on the Sanhedrin, the supreme 70-man council that acted as the highest legal and religious body for the Jewish people. He even carried a confident Greek name, meaning conqueror of the people. He was the ultimate religious insider at the very top of the system. Why does this matter? Because when this highly educated man came to Jesus under the cover of night, his entire worldview was based on human effort. He truly believed that if he just kept the rules perfectly, God's kingdom would arrive. Jesus was not talking to an outsider who needed to clean up his life. He was talking to a religious elite who had done everything perfectly yet still remained in the dark. How many of us approach our faith exactly like this? We treat our spirituality as a ladder. We climb, we perform, and we exhaust ourselves trying to earn a secure spot at the top. We live with the underlying fear that one slip, one bad day will cause us to lose our footing. But Jesus is about to dismantle that ladder entirely. The word that holds two worlds, most of us assume. Jesus was simply telling Nicodemus that he needed to start his life over. We view it as a command to wipe the slate clean and try again. But here is the detail that gets completely flattened in our English Bibles. The Greek word Jesus used that night is anōthen. This specific word carries two distinct meanings simultaneously, and English simply cannot hold both at once. It is true that anōthen can mean again or a second time. That is the door Nicodemus immediately walked through. He heard again, and his logical mind crashed into the physical impossibility of repeating a birth. He pictured climbing the same ladder he had been on for decades, just starting from the bottom one more time. But the root of anōthen is ano, which means upward or above. The deeper literal translation is from above. In fact, everywhere else John uses this exact word in his gospel. Whether he is describing Jesus coming from heaven, Pilate's authority, or the seamless tunic woven from the top down, it always means from above. Jesus was not telling Nicodemus to birth himself a second time. Think about it. You cannot contribute anything to your own birth. You do not plan it, you do not earn it, and you cannot execute it through sheer willpower. You simply receive life from someone else. This new life is not a self-improvement project. It is a gift that descends from God. If your faith feels like a heavy burden today, let this reality bring you peace. You are not the source of your salvation. It was never your weight to carry. Stop looking. We are deeply conditioned to think of spiritual transformation as a grueling upward hike, but Jesus shifts the entire conversation by pulling an ancient image straight out of the Israelite scriptures. He reminds Nicodemus of the time Moses lifted up a bronze serpent on a pole in the wilderness to save the people from a deadly plague. Why draw attention to this specific moment? Because those venom-struck Israelites did not have to climb the pole to be cured. They did not have to perform a complex ritual or earn the right to be healed. A dying person only had to turn their head, look at the serpent, and live. Jesus connects this ancient picture directly to himself. He is the one who came down from above, and he will be lifted up on a cross. Heaven did not wait for us to figure out how to ascend the ladder. Heaven descended the ladder to us. This is the ultimate cure for our religious burnout. If you have been desperately trying to fix yourself, promising God that you will just try harder next time, stop. Stop climbing. The only requirement is to look. Turn your eyes toward the cross and simply receive the life that heaven has brought down to you. The wind you cannot manufacture. We live in a culture that demands visible, instant proof of our progress. We want a predictable spiritual formula, but Jesus points into the dark night air around them and introduces a profound wordplay. In Greek, the word pneuma means both wind and spirit. You cannot control the midnight wind blowing across the hills. You do not know where it begins on the horizon, and you cannot trace where it ends. Yet when it sweeps across the Judean wilderness and bends the dry grass, its impact is undeniable. The Holy Spirit works the exact same way. You cannot conjure him up on command, and you cannot manufacture grace through sheer grit. But when a life is truly born from above, the unseen source leaves behind undeniably visible fruit. Desires shift, loyalties change. Look at what happened to Nicodemus. He began his journey in the dark, hedging his bets and hiding his questions. But by the end of John's Gospel, he steps fully into the daylight. He openly carries an enormous amount of spices to bury a crucified Jesus, publicly risking the reputation he had spent a lifetime building. The wind had moved his guarded Pharisee heart. If you are waiting for a perfectly engineered spiritual awakening, let the pressure go. Stand in the open air. Let God's Spirit move you on his terms and recognize the quiet changes he leaves behind. A quiet rest in the light. Look how far we have journeyed from a simple, overused phrase. Born again was never supposed to be a heavy standard placed on your shoulders. It was never a demand for you to try harder or a checklist you had to painstakingly complete. It is the staggering, beautiful promise that God has provided the very thing you lacked. He reached down into the dark. He breathed new life where our own efforts had failed. And maybe today you don't need to strive anymore. Maybe you just need to look up. Take a moment when this video ends. Stop moving. Stop planning your next spiritual performance. Just breathe and thank him that the pressure is off. You don't have to climb your way to heaven. Heaven came down to find you.